history, people have taken advantage of children in the workforce to provide cheap labor and services. Child labor is exactly what it sounds like. Children being put to work, performing, more often than not, hard physical labor such as mining, or labor that requires nimble fingers. Child labor in the history of the United States has included indentured servitude and child slavery. The first child labor laws in the U.S. were proposed and passed in 1836 in Massachusetts, where children under 15 years of age had to go to school at least 3 months a year. 6 years later, in 1842, Massachusetts limited workdays of children to 10 hours, and other states repeated this act but did not enforce it. In the North, opposition started growing against child labor, and many child labor promoting factories moved to the South. In 1876, the Working Men's Party proposed banning employment of all children under 14. In 1881, the AFL, or American Federation of Labor, told all states to ban children under 14 from working. Finally, in 1936, the Walsh-Healy Act stated that the United States government will not buy goods made by underage children. In debate and diplomacy, it's important to ask, what are the different parties involved in this issue? The answer is there are tons of different sides to this problem, but the main people that it affects are the child workers, who child labor can benefit and harm, the families of the workers, who it can also benefit and harm, the companies, who it makes costs cheaper for, so primarily benefits, the country, who it can harm or benefit depending on the circumstance. As you can see, child labor can be beneficial or harmful to all the groups involved with it. As you can probably tell, the party that profits the most from child labor is the companies, because it drives costs down and profits up. The pros of child labor are cheap, affordable labor for industries and the possibility for a poor child to earn money for his or her family. Children are also less likely to go on strike than adults. Children are also more likely to respond to physical punishment when they get something wrong and can be bullied into making less mistakes. Children can pick up repetitive jobs such as assembling toys and other small items because of their ability to quickly absorb new information. Child labor also keeps orphaned and abandoned children off the streets. If businesses are saving money and making more, it contributes to the economy of a country, and when that country is richer, it can bargain with larger and richer countries more effectively. Child labor can lead to an endless loop of poverty, first by poor children working for cheap wages, then not getting adequate educations because they spend all their time working. And then, in addition, when they're older, not getting better jobs because of their poor educations. They have to work at the same low-paying jobs that they were when they were children. Children that work in factories or mines don't get to have friends or a childhood, and it greatly affects their social skills, also making it hard to land higher-paying jobs. Child labor is mainly hard on the children working, as it provides money for the family and profits for the company. But the group that it really affects is the children and their well-being, their childhood, and often their health. Many job conditions cause health problems in children, like mining or factory jobs. Another problem is that many people decide to boycott businesses that support child labor, and that makes it even harder for the children that work there to make money, and it requires them to work those jobs more and more, and for most likely a lot less than they were before, just to make the same amount of money that they used to. Child labor means children working, and more often than not, for little or no money, but children could be employed in other trades such as housework or paper routes and other non-strenuous activities. When children are working the same jobs as adults for a lot less money, businesses begin to prefer hiring children than adults, and suddenly parents will be competing with their own children for jobs. If a child is working 7 to 14 hours a day while their parents have no jobs, then it forces a responsibility on the children and strips their very childhood away from them. On the other hand, if the children don't have these jobs, they may end up dying of starvation, or if they don't have an adult to supervise them, they'll turn to illegal activities like stealing or prostitution. Before making a concrete decision on whether or not we think child labor is wrong, we have to see it from the point of view of a child who is working 7 to 14 hours a day in a carpet factory, or a child that has had their lungs filled with coal dust every day from working in mines, and then having to go home to parents that lost their jobs because it was cheaper to hire the children, and then, on top of that, having to decide whether to quit your job. Child labor has been a part of society almost as long as there has been society, but it hadn't become a problem until around the late 18th and early 19th centuries, when Great Britain started to industrialize. In the past, in some parts of the world today, parents will give away their kids to work so they can pay off their debts. Child labor is often thought of as a black and white issue, and many countries prefer to ban it altogether than to carefully regulate it so that it benefits both the child, the family, and the business. Rarely do governments take the time to ask the children that are working 14 hours a day their opinions, because children aren't thought of as smart enough or responsible enough to make decisions as well as adults. But if they're working the same jobs for less money, shouldn't they have a say? Today, there are many groups that seek the end of child labor. There are also the rare few people that want child labor to continue. But before we pass judgment, what we need to ask ourselves is it right to end the jobs of millions of children worldwide? And even more importantly, is child labor really slavery, or is it salvation?